But I think a lot of people just go through life not leading their own life, taking themselves in the direction of their purpose and their passion and having a vision, but kind of being taken by life with almost decisions being made for them.
They say change happens through inspiration or desperation, and for me at that point it was kind of definitely the desperation. Anything's possible for a person that really wants to change. Anything's possible for a person that really wants to do something different for themselves.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to this brand new episode of the Vibrant Workplace podcast, proudly supported by NI Job Finder, the place where you'll find vibrant workplaces offering quality careers. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm Craig Thompson, founder of Vibrant Talent. We facilitate the Vibrant Workplace Accelerator, a unique 12-week cultural enhancement program powered by insights from our employee experience platform, Mookie. So what are we doing here today? Well, on this show, we invite leading employers and industry thought leaders so we can explore ideas and encourage a movement towards a better working world for both employers and employees. Today, I'm joined by renowned podcaster, author, speaker, and coach, Seamus Fox. For over 20 years, Seamus has been dedicated to mastering mindset, human behavior, and personal performance so that he can help others unlock their full potential, lead with purpose, and perform at their peak. Seamus says that leadership starts with self-leadership, and he's joined us today to tell us what that means, why it matters, and how to go about it. Seamus, welcome to the show. Why don't you start by giving our listeners a bit of background info on your own journey of discovery and why you do what you do?
First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast, Craig. I'm really looking forward to sharing something that your listeners will take and hopefully get some inspiration from. Why did I get into doing what I do? It's a bit of a long story, and there's a lot of different, I suppose, forks in the road along that journey as well too. But I've been coaching now for almost 20 years. How I started out as a coach was as a personal trainer.
Okay.
I got into personal training. Initially, started out as a bodybuilder. Won a local bodybuilding competition, which was the NAB in Northern Ireland in Belfast. It was in the old Park Avenue Hotel. That was in 2005. So I was up on that wee tiny stage, covered in tan and a wee pair of briefs. I won that show, and that kind of gave me a platform to start a career in personal training. So over the last 20 years, I have been dedicated to understanding how the body works, dedicated to understanding how the mind works, dedicated to understanding how to improve other people's lives, how to get people fitter, stronger, healthier, how they can be a better version of themselves. Who I've worked with over the last 20 years has shifted and changed. But ultimately, I suppose the reason behind all of that was for me to improve who I was initially. I wanted to shift and change my path, where I was going in my life, because for a long period of time, I didn't know where that was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I grew up in Galia here in Derry. I'm the youngest of 7. I left school at 15, 16. Didn't set any qualifications. Wanted to just get straight out the door as fast as I could. And that's what I did. And for years, Craig just kind of chased me tail. Thought I was a victim of circumstances, leaving school with no education. I had a belief at that time that I wasn't educated enough, so I couldn't get a good job. And that kind of led me into many different career paths, many different jobs. You name a job, I've probably done it. From being a roofer to a concreter to a joiner to a taximan to a doorman. I've done that many different jobs. But things, again, kind of are nudging us along the way and nudging us along the path to get in the alignment with what we're supposed to do. How that happened for me was kind of a massive event, which we can explore in the podcast if you want. But I suppose that's a snapshot of the last kind of 20 years as a coach. Craig, yeah.
You've already talked about something which is really, really interesting for me here, because I think it's under the surface of a lot of people's problems. You mentioned that things are kind of just nudging you along to what you're supposed to do, right? And you've talked about how, at a certain point in your life, you didn't really know who you were or who you were supposed to be or what you wanted to be. But I think a lot of people kind of go through life like that. And you say things nudge you along. I think if you listen to those nudges, things might help to nudge you in the right direction. But I think a lot of people just go through life not not leading their own life, taking themselves in the direction of their purpose and their passion and having a vision, but kind of being taken by life with almost decisions being made for them, just following the flow of where their life goes. And I think a lot of the time people are unhappy and they struggle with anxiety and things like that, even depression, because they're not living a life that they're charged up by, that they're fulfilled by. So you were at that point in your life, you didn't really know who you were, who you wanted to be, etc. What told you that the way that you were living wasn't working?
Smashing my car head on onto a wall, Craig, out of my mind after partying for a few days.
Okay.
And it was a massive wake up. It was at 10:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I had been partying. I lived in a bottom floor flat. I just kind of been partying and on that path for a couple of days, but I had been on that path for weeks and months,
Yeah.
and probably a couple of years previous to that.
Yeah.
And they say change happens through inspiration or desperation. And for me, at that point, it was kind of definitely the desperation. I have no real recollection of getting into the car. I just remember the car. I just remember the airbags kind of smashing me in the face.
Okay.
And then a guy had presumed that I was a joyrider. When I got out of the car, he'd smashed me in the face again. Hit the head off the concrete. And then the police came and arrested me. And that was a massive wake up for me. That was a point where I had to look. I was 23, 24, getting caught up in stuff that I deep down didn't want to do. Didn't really want to get caught up in. Deep down, I knew I wanted something more. I knew I had the potential to do something more, be something more. But I just kind of got caught in those patterns, caught in that environment, run around with certain people, etc. No fault of their own, mine, of course. And that was a massive wake up. And it was a time that I had to go, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? Like, is this like who I'm supposed to be? Is this what I'm supposed to do? And that over the period, the few months after that, Craig, it was just kind of soul searching. I was as low as a snake's belly for a while, trying to really kind of find a bit of confidence within myself again. And what came to me naturally after that was, okay, I need to get back in the gym. I need to get back into health and fitness. From the young age of 7, I've always been involved in sport, always been involved in football, bit of boxing, did a bit of MMA, etc. So it's like, okay, get back in the gym. And what I realized over the years was one of my highest values has always been health and fitness. And when I wasn't living according to the things that I actually really value deep down within me, as I said, symptoms, things can happen. A lot of times they nudge us or they point us right back on the right direction. So I got back into the gym, started training, started getting the head down. And then that began to shift and change the trajectory for me. That's then when I started to compete as a bodybuilder. And then off the back of that, I started to create a business and a career out of personal training. So in short, what nudged me along, it was more than a nudge. It was just a bit of a wake-up call for sure.
So it took for you almost to hit that kind of crisis moment to realign things for you?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm curious about is there's probably a lot of people who they're not on a great path, but maybe they don't get so low that they hit a crisis and therefore they just keep going on an unfulfilling path.
Well, here's the thing, I suppose, is what's the difference between being unfulfilled and fulfilled? The difference ultimately is your perception. So, like, at the minute, I can help people shift and change their perception of what it is they're doing by finding how it serves what they truly value so they can get more fulfillment. Or we can look at, okay, so what is it that you actually really value? What is it that you actually really want to do? Are you living according to what you truly prioritize and value? Or are you living with the injected values of others and subordinating to other people and thinking that this is what you need to do and this is who you need to be? So there's definitely different ways to look at it, Craig, for sure, which is shift and change your perception over what it is that you're doing so you can find more fulfillment in it. You can find more meaning and purpose in it. Or, okay, is this what I actually really value? Is this what I actually really want to do? And if not, what changes do I need to make? What do I need to do in order to create some of the shifts that will give me more fulfillment? Because that's what fulfillment is. If you break that word down, fulfillment means fill and full the mind. Ment is Latin for mind. And we fulfill our mind of the things that we actually really value and prioritize. We want to do more of it. We want to get inspired, etc.
So when I think about my own life, Seamus, I hit a certain point when I was about 29, I think I was, when I decided that I wasn't fulfilled by the direction that I was going. I felt like I had this big values conflict with the world of work. I was looking around me. I saw so many people who were miserable. And all I could think was, these people had such a negative experience of work. And because of their negative experience of work, it was making it difficult for them to have a positive experience of life, because you spent more of your conscious waking hours during the best years of your life working than anything else that you do. You spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your loved ones, etc. If you work in a company, if you're employed rather than self-employed, etc. And I remember looking around me, seeing so many people who were unhappy. And I thought, these people give about 100,000 hours of their lives to their employers, and in return, they're miserable. And I thought, this is wrong. It's just wrong. People deserve to have better lives. And I didn't want to be part of what I considered to be this broken model for living and working anymore. I wanted to help people to live better lives. So I decided, I went to work one day, didn't know that I was going to do this, and quit my job, and decided that I was going to change my life and do something that was more fulfilling for me. But I was able to do that at that point in my life because I was 29 years old. I was single. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a car on lease. I owned my own car outright. I didn't have kids, etc. So in a way, it was easier for me. My life facilitated, it made it more possible for me to make the changes that I wanted to make. And, I up sticks and moved to Spain, started a business, etc. But that I tend to consider that to be something that I was able to do because it was possible. And I think there's got to be a lot of people out there who know that they're not on the right track. They know that they're not living a life that's in line with, that's being true to themselves, in line with their values and who they want to be, but they maybe feel stuck. So what is really possible for those people to be able to, make some changes and set themselves on a better path? What can they really do?
Well, what's not possible for a person that wants to change? Like, realistically, anything's possible for a person that really wants to change. Anything's possible for a person that really wants to do something different for themselves. It really comes down to how much does a person actually really want to shift and change. Now, what I would say is we're never really living a path that's not on purpose. Because ultimately we are finding meaning and purpose and fulfillment in doing what we're doing, and it's serving some need and value, or we simply wouldn't do it. So it's wise sometimes to not have the injected values of others, or the fantasy that if I just do X, it's going to be far better. If I just do X, then my life's going to be rosy. If I just do X, then everything's going to be so much more positive. It might well be, for sure. But you could also begin to look at what you're actually doing and find how it's actually serving. How does this benefit me in some way or form? How does this help me financially? How does it help me in vocationally? How does it help me mentally, spiritually, health and fitness, whatever it might be? You can create resentment, frustration, hesitations, all those different things around what you're doing because you don't see how it's actually fulfilling something for you. Or you can shift your perception and find how it does, which releases a lot of the resentment, the frustrations, the hesitations, the friction that a lot of the times people will get. Now, am I saying that might be the thing that you want to keep doing? It might not. But until you're doing something different, and while you might have to keep doing that thing, you may as well find how it's actually benefiting you. You may as well shift your perception on it and find, what do I actually really get from this? What do I really bring to the table? What can I bring to the table? Especially as an employer, because or as an employee, if you're in a position in work and you begin to really fall in love with what you're doing, then you'll find that if you're bringing more value to the table, other people will generally appreciate you more and move you up a ladder. There's no barrier to a person that brings more and more value to a workplace or a company. A person will naturally want to have that person in the team and move them on up. So I suppose in two different ways to answer that question, Craig. One is there's no limit on what a person can do, essentially, obviously within reason, to a person that really wants it, that wants to begin to shift and change. Or if you're in a position that in your mind might not be the most fulfilling path right now, until you're doing something different, shift and change your perception on it. How is this serving me? How is it benefiting my family? How is it benefiting me financially? What can I bring to the table within my environment that I actually really value? Like it might be community connection, it might be helping other people overcome adversity, whatever it might be. You can find what it is that you really value within what you're doing, so that you can shift and change your perception on it, which makes that journey for you easier. Does that make sense? Does that answer?
It does, yeah. And I guess it's both about optimizing your experience of the reality of the moment while also thinking about, well, what would be more purposeful for me, or what would be better than how things are at the moment?
Yeah, it's kind of like there's a Scottish philosopher called David Hume, and he came up with a principle called the is versus the ought. And the ought is a lot of the times how we thought it should be. It should be this, it needed to be this, it has to be this, it should be that. But what it is what it is.
Yeah.
And what it is what I'm doing right now. So you may as well look at what you're doing right now and find how it's serving a purpose, while maybe making the moves and the shifts and the changes towards what it is that you ultimately want to do. Now, the thing is moving towards what you want to do is going to also, as you know, have the opposite side. It's going to be challenging as well too. So the thing, like a lot of the times, is why people don't do that is, what is it that you actually really want? And do you actually really want it? Because a lot of the times people will set goals and aspirations and ideas, and people have said they're going to get in the best shape of their lives, going to earn the most amount of money this year. And a lot of times the things that we say that we want and need aren't what we actually really truly value. So if you're going to set goals, it's crucial for me that they're aligned to what you actually really truly value, because the chances of you succeeding in those, if they're not aligned with what you actually really truly value, is probably going to be minimal.
Why do you think that happens? Why do you think people have goals for things that are not really their goals and they don't truly value?
Because of what we see. What we see a lot of the times, what we think might be important, what we think is going to give us the feeling that we're looking for, what we think is going to fill that void for us, what we think is the thing that we want, is what we often go and achieve. And I know that I've done it, and I'd say that you've done it, Craig, and anybody else listening to this has done it as well too. They've maybe set goals, they have actually went and achieved them, and they went, so it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. It wasn't the thing that I had imagined. It didn't give me what I'm looking for. I think, especially through social media, society, etc., we live a lot of the times with the injected values of others. Other people say, you should be doing this, you need to be doing that, you have to be doing this. And sometimes we blindly follow, and we chase things that we think are important to us because of what other people are doing or what other people say. And then we get there to realize, right, that's not actually the thing. So,
it's really interesting that you should bring this up today, because I've been noticing in coaching conversations that I would have, particularly with managers in organizations, there's a lot of people out there who have got to the point where they've started to rise the ranks in organizations a little bit, but they've got to a point where they're going, and they're starting to have this, level of self-realization where they're going, why am I doing this? Like, I don't want to be doing this. But it's almost like, that's the way society is. You're kind of, you're raised and you're educated to think about careers and growth and taking the next step and the next step and the next step. But then they take step after step and they go, what's actually in this for me? Is this what I want to be doing?
100%. And how many people have done that? Like, especially you look at, right, I leave the education system, I go into university. My father said that I need to become an accountant, I need to become a lawyer, I have to become a doctor, I have to do this, I have to do that. And people will follow that path because they think, right, well, this is going to give me a certain amount of safety, it's going to give me a certain amount of security, I have to kind of follow my father's footsteps. How many people do that and then crash and burn and go, why have I been doing this?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't what I actually really wanted. And sometimes people won't have that courage to take that step back and go, no, I'm following my own path in whatever shape or form that might be. And they'll just, again, plod along till it gets to a certain point. And they're like, I can't do this anymore at all. So I think that why people kind of maybe fall into those patterns and processes and sometimes just being completely unconscious to it is probably because genuinely they want to do better for themselves, of course, but it can also be because of the injected values of somebody else, whether that's some outer authority, a parent, a teacher, society, not listening to themselves and what they actually want and living according to what they really value, living according to what somebody else says is really important.
I'll tell you something that's quite interesting, right? This is just a personal reflection as I think about all this. When I was growing up, my dad was a renowned, incredible golfer, right? And he was a big, strapping man, 6'3". I'm only 5'8", right? So completely different stature to me. And he would step up onto the tee box, smash the ball, straight onto the green. He was incredible. He was a scratch golfer if you play golf. So it's like the best handicap that you can have, right? And incredible golfer. And then who came next? I came next, right? So everybody, it was almost like this, just expectation that I would try and be a good golfer, right? And I remember my dad, and there was no ill intent in his part. He probably just assumed I love golf. Craig's going to love golf. And he had me, at the golf course every week when I was growing up. And I was so atrociously bad at golf that I was that kid who literally would swing and miss the ball 3 times in a row. I'm not even talking about I would hit a bad shot. I mean, I would miss the ball, right, 3 times in a row.
Like side of the green everywhere, just.
and it was awful. It literally was like that, right? And it was awful because everybody knew my dad, Big John, best golfer in the clubhouse, right? So when he would, go golfing with me, he would step up onto the first tee and everybody would come to watch him teeing off. He was like this sort of celebrity in the club. Everybody would watch him teeing off. And then they would watch me teeing off afterwards, right? And it was horrible because he would smash it straight down the fairway and then I would miss the ball. And throughout my childhood, he entered me into every competition going. And I had to turn up for these competitions. I remember one time, right, being entered into a competition whereby they had an awards ceremony afterwards. And at the end, after everybody had got their prizes, the guy who was giving out the awards went, and we have one very special award for one very, very special young man. And I thought, you prick, this is going to be me, isn't it? And I got given an award for not altering my scorecard because it was that bad, right? But I was honest about it. They literally gave me an award for honesty because my scorecard was that bad. And throughout my whole childhood, I grew to despise, and I mean absolutely hate the sport of golf because every day off school, I had to be on the golf course, right? And there was no ill intent, as I say, from my dad. He was great at golf. It was his favorite thing in the world. He just assumed I would love it as well. And I hated it. And I hated it because of the pressure. And the interesting thing was, I remember getting to the age of about 16, and my dad paid my golf membership every year when I was a kid. And once I got to 16, I remember him going, if you're not going to play, or if I'm going to have to drag you here, then I'm not paying your membership anymore. And now it was going up into adult prices, which was a lot more expensive. And I went, don't pay it. I don't want to play, right? And for the next couple of years, I never saw a golf course once, right? I haven't seen it every week when I was growing up. And a couple of years later, right, I remember it was, the middle of the summer. It was a rare sunny afternoon. And I remember looking outside, looking at the sunshine and the blue sky and thinking, that'd be a great day for a game of golf. Right? Because I went from being made almost and feeling the pressure and the expectation of following someone else's path and their purposeful path, where I didn't enjoy it because it wasn't me choosing to do it, to now I had the autonomy to do whatever I wanted. And I thought that would be a nice thing to do. And the interesting thing was, all those years when I was growing up, I couldn't play golf. I couldn't hit the ball. But once I was now choosing to do it and the pressure was off and I was going on my own and nobody was watching me, I was able to hit the ball and hit it straight.
Maybe the not hitting the ball was a strategy, an unconscious motive for you They let go. This isn't what I want to do. Look, I'm crap at it. Leave me alone. Let me do my own
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that, what you're saying really resonates with me, because I think there's a lot of people out there who they do grow up and maybe they don't even realize this, but they're following their parents or their grandparents or someone
Yeah.
who's important to them. They're following their vision for their life rather than their own.
100%, man. 100%. I think it's a common thing. It's a common thread. And what a lot of the times happens then is that relationship starts to become broken sooner or later, because let's say if it's a kid, for example, and you've got the parent on the pedestal and the parent is telling you all these different things and you admire and love your parent as we naturally do, but you're again living with the injected values of somebody else, then sooner or later, if you keep doing things that you resent and that you don't really value and don't really like, you're going to start building that up and building that up and building that up and building that up until you break and go, I can't do this anymore. And that's like a natural process of ourselves to try and build ourselves back up again, back into fair exchange, where we are now kind of on an even keel and we're starting to get our own autonomy and realize that, no, I need to create the path that I want to live. I want to go in the direction that feels most inspiring for me and feel most fulfilling for me. And I think that in terms of overall health and longevity and purpose and meaning and all these different things, like just creating fulfillment for yourself on a day-to-day basis, it's important to find out what's actually really making you tick, what you actually really truly prioritize, what you actually really value. Because if you're just constantly trying to live with other people's values, you're never getting to be yourself. And everybody
Yeah.
wants to be themselves. Every single person wants to be who they really want to be, and they want to be loved and accepted as that person. But if you're trying to fit into somebody else's model of the world and you can't get to be you, then you're not getting to be you at all. And that will come out in so many different ways a lot of the times.
Is it possible that then is one of the big things that's behind, the kind of mental health crisis and so many people who struggle with anxiety and depression and self-harm, etc. these days, that they're not living true to themselves?
It's definitely a component of it, I think, Craig, for sure. I think there's a component of it. There's so many different factors that obviously leads into depression, anxiety, mental health. You've got sleep, you've got nutrition, you've got exercise, you've got what are weekends like. If you're out smashing every single weekend, is that a mental health problem or is that a lifestyle problem? It's a lifestyle problem. If you're not looking after yourself, you're going to increase your chances of mental health issues, anxiety, stress, etc. So a lot of the times those things can be resolved by cleaning up your lifestyle, by your sleep, your nutrition, all of those different things. But a definite component I 100% agree with in what you're saying, Craig, is if you're not getting to be yourself, if you're not getting to do the thing that's most important or most inspiring for you, then of course you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that. And a lot of times the behaviors that occur around that will be escapism behaviors, which will lead you more towards the drink, towards the trying to escape what you're doing, live Monday to Friday, escape at the weekend, go back into that drudgery a lot of the times in the Monday morning, and then kind of get yourself through the week again and go and do the same thing again. But if you're feeling inspired, if you're feeling fulfilled, if you're on a mission, let's say, of your own, in whatever shape or form that might be, then a lot of the times you're more interested in doing that than trying to escape the other thing that you don't like.
So I think there's a lot of people that get caught up just in the mire, in the grind of, you go to work, you work hard, Monday to Friday or whatever days and hours you work, but you work your full-time hours, you come home, you're knackered, you maybe turn to the drink and stuff like that to cope with a life that you're not happy with, but they maybe don't even get to the point where they ask themselves the question of what's wrong. They just keep plodding along. How do you, without having to hit the crisis point, how can people get that, that light bulb moment sooner without having to hit rock bottom? How can we help people to realize, what's wrong? And also, how do we help them to find their purpose, or how do they help themselves to find their purpose? Because maybe they know that they're not happy with the way they're living their life at the moment, but they don't know what would be better. So how do they go about finding out what is the right path for them?
Yeah, well, this is something that I actually shared as a video on my Insta stories yesterday, and I think it kind of feeds into what you're saying here. And I shared that when you ask somebody what do they want, sometimes there's a mental block. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know like where to go. Like there's so many things to choose from. What do you want to do? Most people run a blank. So a good question to ask yourself is, what do I not want to do? How do I not want to love? Where do I not want to be?
Okay.
Like ask yourself those questions and then look at what is the polar opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if the polar opposite of how you don't want to be is this, right, well, what do I need to do to change? What am I going to commit myself to in order for me to shift and change my attitude, my mindset, my environment, the people that I'm around, who I'm listening to, what I'm taking on board? What am I going to do to shift and change? Because if I know what I don't want and I keep repeating the same patterns to get me what I don't want, and I know what the polar opposite is, then it's about making that commitment within yourself and going, okay, so this isn't where I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. That's what I don't want. This is what I do want. How do I start moving towards that? And any sort of small step is enough. No, don't think about, I have to make drastic changes. I have to make big changes. I have to make all these big shifts that become overwhelming. And then there's fear a lot of the times that'll cripple you from actually making that step. But what is the small steps that you can make every single day that would help you nudge your way towards what that might be for you? That might be, I'm going to listen to a podcast like this. I'm going to walk 5 times a week. I'm going to get to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to like ease back from spending time with this person who's a real kind of negative influence on me. I'm going to shift my environment. I'm going to read a book, whatever it might be. I think like for me, again, going back to myself, Craig, like at that time when I wanted to make those shifts and changes, like you're going right back to like there was no such thing as social media and things like that. So mentors, coaches, podcasts, YouTube, all those things weren't readily available. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And that was the thing. I just didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know how to make and shift those changes. When I knew how to begin to like take on board different information and started learning from different people, then it was like, right, okay, it opened up my mind to a whole new different kind of way of thinking. And that started making me move and shift and change my habits and behaviors along a path of what I actually did want to create. Because unfortunately, a lot of us are focused on the things that we don't want. And then we keep wondering, why does the things that we don't want keep reappearing?
It's very easy to get fixated on the problem and not really think about what would be better than the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's literally around kind of taking that step back. And as you said, asking that question, how do we create that change? For me, a very simple process is that just going, where do I not want to be? Who do I not want to be? How do I not want things to be in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? Okay. What would the polar opposite of that be? Right, okay, and what am I committed to doing? And then take the small steps as necessary. Reach out, listen to a podcast, speak to a coach, speak to a mentor, whatever it might be, in order for those changes to happen. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. But what's the alternative? Just doing the same thing that you want to do anyway?
I think that's an interesting point to explore as well, because there's an expression that goes around, and it's something along the lines of, find something that you're passionate about and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't totally agree with that, right? I agree with it massively on one hand, and on the other hand, I think it's a bit misleading. I'm hugely passionate about what I do, but trying to achieve what I've been trying to achieve has been very, very, very difficult. I launched my business. I didn't know that obviously Brexit was going to happen, and I worked with clients that were all around the world, so that was a challenge. Didn't know the pandemic was going to happen, cost of living crisis. There's been constant challenges. It has not been easy, but there has not been one day where I haven't woken up, and even when I knew it was going to be hard, where I haven't been excited to pick up my shield and my sword and go to war.
100%.
And I think so. I think it sends the wrong message. When you say you'll never work a day in your life, I work harder than I have ever worked in a company in employment. But I work in pursuit of something that is meaningful to me, and that makes it worthwhile.
100%. How you know you're going after something that you actually really, truly value and it has meaning for you is you're willing to pursue the pains and pleasures in its pursuit.
Yeah.
If it's not something that you truly value, you'd hop out. If it wasn't something that you really had meaning in, Craig, you'd have went, you know what, nah, I'm going back and getting a job. Because people have the perception that, oh, if I just had my own business, not everybody should have their own business. Let's just call it spade a spade. It's not for everybody. People have the perception that if I wasn't working 9 to 5 and I had my own business, I was going to do this. Well, if you make that shift, you're probably doubling the amount of hours that you've done because you're going to be working a lot more. You're going to be working at different times. You're going to be up earlier. You're going to be working late in the evenings. You're going to have a lot more worries, struggles, challenges to face, etc. But again, it comes back to, do I really love this? Am I really interested in growing this purpose, this meaning, this vision, this mission? And when it's connected to something that you naturally want to fulfill, Craig, as you know, you're going to go through the roadblocks, the challenges, the hurdles, the obstacles, the things that you need to do in order for you to overcome to be a better version of yourself and to get your business to where it needs to be. You're going to do that because it's something that you actually really, truly value. It's something that you find a lot of meaning and purpose in.
So this term that you use, self-leadership, and I know that you say to lead others, you first of all have to lead yourself. What does that mean? And what does self-leadership even mean?
Self-leadership for me, well, I look at it this way. Every single person is a leader when they understand what they really value. You wake up your leadership when you live according to what you prioritize, not other people. That could be as a mother. That could be as a father. It could be as a teacher. It could be as a coach. It could be as a business owner. It could be in many different ways. Like a mother that really understands that her family is her highest value, she's a leader.
Yeah.
A father that does the same, he's a leader. Whether that's a leader in a company, a CEO, like whatever it might be, when you're doing the thing that you actually really value within a business, within yourself, you wake up your leadership because you walk your talk. The people that aren't walking their talk and they're not able to lead themselves. So they're living with the injected values of others, which is hard to be a leader if you're living according to what somebody else thinks is important instead of you. So to wake up your leadership, is to understand what's most important for you and then to direct your goals, your ambitions, your desires in and around what's most important for you so that you walk your talk and wake up your leadership.
You talked about, whether you're a mother, whether you're a father, etc. there, and leadership comes in many forms. And it's interesting because a lot of the time when I say to people, who do you consider to be an inspirational leader? You might assume that they're going to say, some famous business leader or some sort of life coach guru or, somehow a politician. I'm not sure there's too many politicians I would look at these days and call leaders.
But they're leaders from the pulpits anyway. Yeah, for sure.
But the interesting thing is a lot of the time it's someone like a grandmother or a grandfather that people will go, that's who I'm inspired by. And it's because of what they represent, how they live their lives and what they've overcome. And a lot of that comes from what they hold dear in their heart, their values. And when it comes to that, what is your take on values? Sometimes I look at values and I go, when we do these exercises to shape values, in a business, for example, you could put every single value on a wall, right? And you want to be every one of those things, but you can't be every one of those things. So how do we actually work out what are the values that are most important to us? And what should the right values be for us?
Well, there is no right or wrong values to kind of, I suppose, look at it from that perspective. And your values aren't what's put on a wall. And your values aren't words. Your values are what your life demonstrates is important for you through your actions and your habits and your behaviors. So the way I look at values is an internal look, not external. I ask questions to see what a person's life is actually demonstrating. How do you fill your time? How do you fill your space? What gives you energy? Where do you focus? Where you got most inspiration? What do you allocate your money towards? Where are you organized, disciplined, reliable, focused? It's an internal look at what a person's life is actually demonstrating. And I look at it as a snapshot of time to see what is actually current. Not what you think it should be, not what you want it to be, because the things that you think it should be or the things that you want it to be, if it's not actually happening, they're not actually a real true priority for you. So
Yeah.
For me, I look at values as an internal look to see what I'm focused on, what am I thinking about, what am I speaking about, what am I affirming, what am I putting my energy towards, what do I fill my time and space with. I want to look at what your life demonstrates, because that shows me what you value. That shows me what you're prioritizing. All these things on the wall don't mean nothing. Because the thing is let's say it's a business, and they have their place, of course, but we might have these values on a wall. Most people aren't coming into work to live by those. Most people are coming into work to fulfill what's most important to them, providing for their family, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, travel, experience, going on holidays, whatever it might be. Yeah. They're unfortunately, for people that are listening to business or business owners, they're probably not coming in because of what we've put on the wall. Now, here's the flip side to that. A lot of the times, Craig, is if we have these expectations for the person or the people that we have within our company to live according to what we have on a wall, and we don't understand what a person actually really truly prioritizes and values within their own life, they are more going to create an unrealistic expectation for other people to live according to what we value. And other people don't live according to what we value. They live according to what they value. And part of my process as a coach and a mentor, if I work with teams, CEOs, executive teams, is to understand what that person actually really truly prioritizes and values within themselves. And then go, okay, so how do we now understand what that is? And how does fulfilling this company vision and mission help you fulfill what's most important to you? So we start to create the links. So when we start to create the links between what they prioritize and how fulfilling this company vision and mission would actually serve that, they find more engagement. There's more meaning, more purpose in showing up to do the things that they need to do within that company.
So it's actually dealing with the reality of what their values already are, rather than trying to craft new values and align people with them.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to come along and create these values, which a lot of the times are plucked from the air or plucked from what they see in other people's companies, etc. And these are, a lot of times, they're moral ethics and they have their place. But what a person lives by is going to be completely different. And why they're different, Craig, is because every single person has a unique set of priorities and values, because the life that they've lived has been completely different to everybody else. So our values a lot of the times are derived from the things that we thought were missing and the things that we currently think are missing. And we're trying to fulfill what we think is missing most. And a value is essentially to try and fulfill that void. So they say that everybody should live according to these values doesn't really work out, because a person is naturally trying to fulfill what they think is missing most through their values. So the top value is usually designed to fulfill the highest void or the biggest void that we've experienced. So for an example, so an example, let's say a person in business, they have a lack of sales, they have a lack of money, they have a lack of opportunity coming in. There's a void there. Whoa, hold on a minute. We need to get on the ball. We need to start reaching out to people, speaking to people, fulfilling some sort of need for somebody else. We're trying to fill that void. Now, we've got a multitude of voids from the day that we're born right up to this point. And some of the biggest ones that we've experienced, some of the insecurities, etc., the chip on our shoulders, etc., that we've all gone through, a lot of the times the thing that we're trying to fulfill or the thing that we're moving towards is, let's say, fulfilling that void or that insecurity or that thing that we experienced. Does that make sense?
It does, and it makes me think about the recruitment space then and how important that must become, because rather than then bringing anybody in, as long as they've got the technical skill set and trying to help them to get them to help us to be successful, is it that we need to understand what we're missing and then identify people who already have the values that we're missing to fill those voids for the company?
Yeah, well, even a different way to look at it is, again, if it's kind of feasible, is to have in some way or form, if you were able to determine that person's values through a process.
Yeah.
And let's say you had a specific role that you need fulfilled within that job or that business, and you know that person's values. If you ask them, how would doing this specific job role help you fulfill your values, help you fulfill number one, number two, number three?
Love it.
If they're able to answer that straight away, and there's kind of fluency
Yeah.
and congruency between their answers, you know that they've got the right position. If they're like,
Yeah.
Let me think. Well, it's probably not the right position for them because they can't see how doing this thing is actually helping them, which means you're probably have to motivate that person on down the line. So by even understanding that process of what a person really appreciates and values, we can begin to link and make sure that they're in the right position within the business and the company so that there's inspiration instead of motivation and that there's flow instead of trying to push.
Yeah. And I think if you get that right to begin with, and you get people in who they're inspired, they're excited by the challenge that lies ahead, everything else becomes so much easier rather than trying to fix things after the fact.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is we think, oh, that person's not capable or they're not, they could be just in the wrong role. Because most people come to an interview and they're going to tell you what you think you want to hear. That's what they're going to do. They're trying to land the job. So I think understanding some of the basic needs of people or understanding the basic values that a person has can be a crucial component to having an inspired team that want to move forward or a team that you're trying to push up a hill.
I'm a big believer in the concept of strengths-based interviewing and basically bringing people along, not to interview them for a specific role, but just to get to know them and find out what are they passionate about, what makes them tick, what are they really good at, when they get their best results in life, what sort of things are they typically doing, what do they get the most joy from, and then looking at the vacancies that we have available and going, well, let's have a conversation about which you might be a good fit for and vice versa. Rather than we bring people along for an interview for one specific job and we decide they're a good fit or they're not, and we reject them from the company. And, you know, maybe there's other roles within the company that they might be a better fit for and it might be a better fit for them.
Can I share a wee story on this, Craig?
Please do.
And it's from my mentor, who I've learned a lot of the values piece from, Dr. DeMartini. And he shared a story, which was, he was looking for a manager in his company, in his business. This was years ago. And he'd put it out there. And the guy applied for it. The guy was like 52, 53 years old. And he brought him in. And they had a conversation. They started having a chat about kind of the role, etc. And he said, I'm going to write out a check for $10 million. And I'm going to give you this check for $10 million. And I want you to tell me everything that you would do with this $10 million. I said, right, okay. So we give him the check. Tell me everything that you would do with it. I would go and I would build this big cabin where I would design all this different types of furniture and carpentry and do all these different things. And I would build this and I would build that and everything to do with what he really, really loved. And they had the conversation, blah, blah, blah. Cut a long story short. He says, so how did the interview go? Did he get the job? He says, no, of course not. And he said, can I ask why? He said, well, if you can't manage your life, why would I ask you to manage my business? And he said, what do you mean? He says, well, this is obviously something that you really, really love. It's something that you really, really value. It's what you would love to fulfill, but you're not doing it. So you're not going to be the person that's going to be able to manage my business. And he said that the guy had an honest conversation with him. And he said that about 6 weeks later, the guy had came back and came in the office to see him. And he said, look, that was probably one of the strangest, weirdest interviews that I ever had. He says, but it was a light bulb moment. He says, it got me to really understand what I actually want, what I want to create, what I really value. And it started his furniture business. And he came back and he noticed that there was like things in his table, like tissues and handkerchiefs and stuff like that. So he'd built them like holders and all these different things. Basically came back and said, look, I just want to say thanks. He took a leap and started the business. So the story, I suppose, in that is if we have a person that's coming in to fulfill a role or a job or whatever, it's important to really understand what's really making them tick, because we could have them in the wrong position and then we're constantly just trying to motivate that person.
This term motivation is always one that I have a big debate about in my head. The idea of motivation versus discipline, which comes first?
Well, for me, you're going to be disciplined in your higher values. You're going to be disciplined in the areas that's really important for you. Motivation, a lot of times, will come when you're trying to do something that you don't really value or prioritize. And you're trying to push yourself along to go and do that. So motivation is something that you're living according to somebody else's values. So let's say, for example, health and fitness. I have a health and fitness background, owned health and fitness businesses and gyms, etc. I would see a lot of people motivated in January, and then in February, a lot of unmotivated people. They were back out the door again. People were motivated. This is it. This is the year, but they hadn't shifted that internally. They hadn't shifted their values. They hadn't either aligned what was really important for them, or doing the health and fitness journey to something that was really important for them. So motivation isn't a thing that you're looking for, a thing that you should be living by or trying to get. And for me, discipline will always come when you're doing the things that you actually really prioritize. Look at your life and see where you're already disciplined. It might be in your business, it might be in your work, it might be in your family, it might be in finances. If you look at your life and see where you're already disciplined, you're probably going to see that that's an area that you prioritize. That's an area that you value. You're undisciplined and unreliable when you live in low priorities and low values. You're disciplined and reliable when you live in high priorities and high values.
It's interesting because it's a bit awkward for me sometimes, because I'll be coaching people, but I'll have been brought in by their employer. And these people are bashing their head against the wall. They hate what they do. And they're constantly saying, I can't find the inspiration. I can't find the motivation. I haven't got the energy for this, etc. And you're thinking, are you doing the right thing? But when you're brought in by the employer to do the coaching in the first place. But I always say to my clients at the outset, look, sometimes this kind of process might result in people working out that they're not in the right space. And that might mean that they leave your business, but sometimes that's the best thing for the business as well. For someone who's in a role that they're not doing well because they're not passionate about it, they're not fulfilled by it, it's not in line with their values, maybe the best thing is for them to move on and be replaced by someone who is excited about that.
Yeah, 100%. Someone who does want to do those things, who naturally feels inspired to do those things, for sure.
Yeah.
You can do that 100%. Or you can, again, as we talked about earlier, you can get a person to shift and change the perception of what it is they're doing. Find how that low priority, low value action that needs to be done, find how it serves something that's really important for them.
Yeah. Is that a sticking plaster though, or is that a permanent solution?
It's, well, ultimately, again, it'll kind of come down to if that person, you will be able to link it and shift it and change it for a period of time, for sure. But if you find that this thing that I'm doing is helping me grow my family, it's helped me grow financially, it's helped me have more meaning and purpose, it's whatever it might be for you. It might be for a period of time, it could be for even longer. It just depends on the person ultimately, because you can take and shift and change your perception in anything and go, right, okay, how it is. I can see how that serves a bigger purpose for me, so there's no frustration. Now, at different levels within the business, let's say it's a business owner, there's going to be things sometimes that you have to do that you don't really want to do. So it's wise to begin to shift and change your perception on those things so that you can see how it's serving the bigger vision. But ultimately, you want to live according to what you really value and prioritize so that you can get to show up in the best way possible. So you want to then delegate all those other things out, automate those things, maybe eliminate certain areas, etc. So it's important to live by your priority for sure. And then have the ways and the means and the resources to delegate all the other stuff out to other people at a higher level, definitely. Because if you're stuck as a business owner, CEO, whatever it might be, if you're stuck doing all the low priority, low value things, it's going to drain your energy. It's going to impact your self-confidence. It's going to impact your self-image. And that's not going to help you grow the business, because you're not going to want to grow into those things. So it's crucial to go, okay, I need to delegate those things out and get away from that low priority, low value stuff and stick to priority, which is creating the vision, the mission, and moving towards how we actually expand and grow. At an employer level, it's sometimes a bit more difficult for a person, for sure, because you're not able to delegate those other things. You have to do those tasks. So you may as well look at, how does doing these tasks help me fulfill what's most important for me?
And I think, that idea of what's most important for me and the purpose of the work that's being done is something that we often lose sight of. And there might be, a founder of a business who sets up the company. They're really purposeful. They're really passionate about it. But then years go by, it becomes difficult. They grow the business. They have to do all the parts of the job that they don't want to do. Maybe they're really passionate about their service or their product, but now they've got a team of people and they're spending all their time managing people, and maybe that's not what they like to do, etc. They lose sight of the big picture. But to come back to what you're saying, everything that you're doing, no matter what you're doing, is in service of that higher purpose. And I think it's important to remember that. Really good book. Maybe you've read it, Seamus, Man's Search for Meaning.
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, yeah. And for those listening that maybe haven't, there's a quote in it that says, "He who has a why to live can bear with almost any how."
Yeah, if he can find purpose and meaning in a concentration camp, no, we can shift and change our perception in pretty much anything that we're doing within our daily tasks and work, for sure. I actually discussed that on a podcast I was on last week as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it surprised me actually when I got that book, because I thought, it was such a famous book. I thought it was going to be, massive, and it's actually quite a short book, isn't it?
Yeah. Here's the thing as well, too, I suppose, Craig, for people that are listening in. People think when they're talking about their purpose, that it has to be some grand, like, big vision, or it has to be some sort of astronomical thing, or it doesn't. Like, it really doesn't. No, as I said already, as a parent, your purpose might be your kids, raising a family.
Yeah.
As a coach, it might be leading a team of 10 people. No, sometimes people get caught up in the grandiose thing that, my purpose isn't big enough, or what is my purpose? Your life is demonstrating it. Look at what your life is demonstrating. And stop allowing your own kind of vision and purpose to be clouded by what other people think is important. And look at what your life is really demonstrating. Because if you look at what your life is demonstrating, you'll see what's important for you. And usually your purpose is tied up in that. Now, can you expand on that? 100%, of course.
Whether it is an employee in a company who's listening, or whether it's an employer, no matter who's listening, why should they care about this stuff?
They don't. They don't have to. Ultimately, they don't have to care about it. If they're listening to it, I'm assuming that they do. And I'm assuming that they're on some sort of path of educating themselves and learning a bit more. But I suppose to answer the question, they don't necessarily have to care about it at all. But if you're listening to this type of information, if you're listening to these types of podcasts, then you're obviously growth oriented. You're obviously looking to improve yourself. You're into personal development. You want to expand your business and grow. You're into that type of information and work. So in that case, for me, it's important as a person like that listening in, that you're always educating yourself, that you're always learning, that you're always finding inspiration, that you're maybe finding new ways to lead, new ways to operate, that you're getting yourself around the right type of people. Maybe you've listened to something within this podcast that you haven't heard before, and you went, that's something I never even realized, or I've got a different perspective on it. Or maybe I heard it in a different way that I heard before, and I just began to click. So I don't know how many different courses I've been on, how many different mentorships I've been on with so many different mentors in the last 20 years, you can imagine. And I've heard a lot of the same things repeated. But who I am as a person that's listened to it at different stages is going to be different. So my intellect has improved, or I've taken that on board at a different stage and I've learned something completely different. It's that saying, Craig, you can never step into the same river twice, because it's not the same river and you're never the same person. So no matter where we are on that journey, when we're learning and evolving, sometimes we've heard the same thing before, but now it has a different meaning, or now you've understood it better.
Yeah, that's so true.
I don't know if that answers the question directly, but
it does. I think that, you used an expression earlier on in the conversation, back at that point when, around the time, I guess, when you smashed the car into the wall, etc., and you reached crisis point, you didn't know what you didn't know. And that's what I'm kind of wondering, is those people who might be listening to this episode that don't know what they don't know, why should they care to look beyond?
Yeah. Well, again, why they should care to look beyond is because if you have a yearning to grow,
Mm-hmm.
then it's crucial in order for us to grow that we need to learn the stuff that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that we all, in some way or form, want to grow. We all, in some way or form, want to be a better version of ourselves. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, you know what, I wouldn't mind kind of getting smaller, I wouldn't mind things getting worse. Nobody wakes up and thinks that. We all wake up and think, I would love to improve in some way. I would love to better myself
Mm-hmm.
in some way. I would love to expand in some way. I think that's just internal in all of us in some way or form. It's not the same for everybody, of course. But if it is something that you want to do and you feel that need, want, yearn, whatever it might be, in order for you to expand and grow, then getting around the right people is crucial for that to happen. Your environment is crucial for that to happen. Go back to using that quote with James Clear, where he said, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. And it's so, so true.
Yeah.
So the environment that you place yourself in, who you're surrounding yourself with. Like I've got a group at the minute, the FitMind Academy, which is a group of business owners that are all in the academy. We focus on mindset, we focus on health and well-being and business. And somebody shared something in the group earlier on, and it was exactly on that, which was you rise or fall to the level of your peer group. And it's so important. So if you want to grow, if you want to expand, if you're listening to these podcasts, it's really important to make sure that you're around the right people in order for that to happen.
So if there's a business owner who's listening, and obviously, you know, back to what we talked about at the start, I know it's an important point that you make is, first of all, to lead other people, you need to lead yourself. So first of all, they've got to be leading themselves. But if they then think, you know, what they're learning and how it's helping them has helped them to live a better life, and they want to help their team, they want to help their workforce develop, you know, self-leadership, what can they do to help others? What can they do to help to develop the workforce?
Well, I think anybody that's inspired will naturally inspire somebody else. Because when you feel inspired, other people feel it. So if you're learning new information, if you're taking on board new stuff, if you're upgrading your mindset, if you feel inspired, how you show up is going to be completely different. It's hard to inspire someone if you're not inspired. It's just, it's hard to do. And the person that you're trying to inspire isn't really going to take it on board because they're like, well, that's not really what the vibe that I'm getting. So how could a person influence other people? By getting inspired yourself, by showing up with inspiration, by showing up with someone that has that energy, by showing up with someone that like naturally wants to expand and grow. People are going to feel that, and people want to be part of something that's moving forward and growing.
Yeah.
There's a natural
so your energy,
your
your kind of energy then radiates, and everybody else almost gets infected by that.
100%. You've been in a room, I've been in a room, I've been around people, Craig, that I automatically like feel a connection with. I'm like, right, that person's going somewhere, or I like that guy's energy. There's a good vibe around here. We've also been in rooms when the opposites occurred. The person doesn't say a word, and you're like, whoa, something feels off here. What is that? So how a leader, a business owner, ultimately can help and influence their team and the people around them is they make sure that they're inspired as well. Is they make sure that you are tapping into the things that you need to do within yourself that are helping you show up better. Are you sleeping properly? Are you eating properly? Are you hydrating properly? Are you exercising consistently and regularly? Are you doing those things that will have a big impact on how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how you're performing? And then are you aligned with something that you actually want to fulfill and grow? Are you aligned with something that's pulling you forward also?
Yeah.
Because if you're aligned with something that's pulling you forward, you can guarantee that you're going to bring people along with you a whole lot faster.
And it's interesting because when it comes to organizational purpose, sometimes I think even business owners themselves struggle to think of, why does this work matter? Okay, but you're solving a problem somewhere for someone, otherwise your business wouldn't exist and people wouldn't be buying from you. So you can tap into that. But even beyond that, forgetting about the service you provide, the product you build, whatever it is, I always think, if nothing more, a business can serve as a vehicle to help the people who work there live better lives. And what could be, for me personally, what could be more purposeful than that? You have the opportunity to help people live better lives.
Yeah, well, ultimately, that's what a business is for, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
It's to have an impact. It's to like improve some, either how a business functions, or like how a person operates, or how a
Mm-hmm.
person feels within the business, the workforce, the team, the employees,
Yeah.
etc. Essentially, that's what it's for. It's fulfilling a need, and
Mm-hmm.
that might be for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, again, you can kind of get this also grandiose thing that it has to be something esoteric, and no, it
Yeah.
might be for you to provide for your family. It might be for you to go and travel. It might be for
Yeah.
you to live the life that you
Uh-huh.
want to live. No, don't
Yeah.
make it into something that it doesn't need to be. No,
Uh-huh.
bring
Yeah.
it back to the basics a lot of times and go, what do I actually really
Yeah.
want from this? What do I actually really
Sometimes sometimes I look at organizational purpose statements and I go, I don't even understand what you do as a business, because it's almost like we try to get too smart with these things, take it away from the simplicity of what it is and why it matters, and turn it into this corporate spiel
Yeah.
that it's not actually clear anymore. What are we? Why are we? Why do we exist? What are we trying to do here?
Similar to human values, like the thing that a process that I'll go through with business owners is, what has the business been consistently demonstrating over the last 5 or 10 years? What is
Yeah.
true within the business? What do people find within them? I'm looking at the business and how you can create a business vision and mission, similar to what a personal value kind of statement would be. Like,
Uh-huh.
because if you're trying to create something, of course you might want to expand on a vision, but if you're creating something that's the business hasn't been demonstrating for a period of time to be true, then there's going to be a misalignment between the vision and what the business actually does. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people get, as you said, tied up in this spiel, this corporate stuff that isn't actually a reflection of what the business does. And then there's a disconnect
Mm-hmm.
with the people in it and the vision, because they're like,
Yeah.
well, this doesn't feel true,
Mm-hmm.
which means people aren't going to be on board. There's going to be conflict there.
Yeah. So, two final questions for you. Okay. I'll ask them both together. But you've worked with a lot of people over a long period of time now to help them to find that sort of passion and purpose and inspiration, and live in tune with their values. Are there certain non-negotiables that you find within the day of someone who is, leading their own life? Are there certain non-negotiables that you find that these are inherent in the way that all these people live? And secondly, if there was one starting point, what would you say is the most important starting point? If there was someone listening to this conversation today and they thought, right, I want to do something, where do I start? What would that be?
The most important starting point, I suppose, for me is understanding what it is that you actually really want. No, understanding if you could drown out the noise of everything else that's going on externally, drown out the noise of social media, friends, relationships, and maybe take a wee bit of a deep dive internally. Maybe take a wee bit of time and ask yourself, what is actually true for me? What do I actually really want? What do I want to create? What do I want to fulfill? What do I find most meaning and purpose in? Start with what your real values are, and then go from there, move from there. I think the ultimate starting point is to understand what you actually really prioritize and value, because you can go in many different directions from that point. But if you don't understand what that is, you're going to be swayed by everybody, which will create a lot of internal conflict. And then what's true for other people, like people that I work with, coach, business leaders, etc. What's true and non-negotiable? People that are leading at that level, I think what's true and non-negotiable is how they fulfill their priorities. Living by what's truly most important for them. That might be in their business, it could be in their family, it could be in their health and their fitness, etc. Those guys that have a clear vision and mission and purpose, they're naturally gravitated towards fulfilling those things every single day, and they become non-negotiables. That's the things that they want to naturally move towards. So a person is really, really clear in that. Their behaviors and their habits and their actions are going to demonstrate that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that answers.
Listen, Seamus, it does, but we could have continued this conversation. We could have just done like a double episode here, because I feel like there's still so much more I could learn from you. But I think that you've given enough here for people to really give this some serious consideration. If they thought, I really like what this guy says, I really like what I've taken from this conversation, I think he could help me, how can people follow up with you?
You can get me through most social media channels, Craig, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Not as much on Facebook as these days, but LinkedIn, Instagram. Go to my website, seamusfox.com, or send me an email, inquiries@seamusfox.com, and I will get in touch with anybody that reaches out for sure.
Look, thank you so much for coming on today, because I've learned so much through the conversation. I think people will have taken a lot from this. And personally, I'm always really inspired by people who have faced, hard times themselves and found a way past them and made something of themselves. And when I look at you, it's incredible what you've managed to achieve over the last couple of decades from where you were. And that gives me a lot of hope for where I'm going and what I might be able to do. So I hope that you've enjoyed coming on and sharing your story. And I would encourage people to look you up, connect with you, see more about your work, see how you can help them. Just thank you for everything that you've shared today.
Thank you, Craig. It's been a pleasure, man. Really, really enjoyed the podcast. Really enjoyed the questions and the deep dive and the direction that it took. And I appreciate your words as well too, man. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you to our listeners as well for tuning in. I hope that you have enjoyed the episode. If you have, I would really appreciate if you would give it a 5-star rating, a follow, and a share on social media so that we can get these stories out to as wide an audience as possible and help together to create a better working world. If you have enjoyed the episode and you do give it a share and you're still thinking, look, my company is struggling with talent attraction, engagement, or retention, please check out the website, vibranttalent.co.uk, and see if we can maybe help you with that via the Vibrant Workplace Accelerator. That's it for this time. I'll see you soon.